There is a health risk that millions of older adults live with every single day. It doesn't show up on a blood test. It doesn't cause a fever or a rash. Your doctor may never ask you about it. And yet, researchers who study aging now take it as seriously as many of the physical conditions we spend so much time worrying about. I'm talking about social isolation and loneliness. And if you're over 65, or you love someone who is, the next few minutes may change how you think about protecting your brain, your heart, and your independence in the years ahead. Hello, my friends, and welcome back. I'm Dr. James Carter, and today we're going to have an honest conversation about something most people never bring up at a doctor's appointment. We'll talk about what loneliness actually does inside the aging body, why it so often goes unnoticed, the warning signs to watch for in yourself and the people you love, and most importantly, the practical, realistic steps that can help. Before we begin, please remember that this video is for educational purposes only. It is not medical advice, and it is never a substitute for a conversation with your own doctor who knows your personal health history. Now, let's get started. Let me tell you about a woman I'll call Margaret. Margaret is a fictional example, but her story will feel familiar to many of you. Margaret is 72. She was married for 46 years. Her husband, Frank, handled the driving, loved hosting the neighbors, and filled the house with conversation. When Frank passed away 3 years ago, Margaret's world became quieter. Her children live out of state. Her closest friend moved into assisted living across town. Little by little, without any single dramatic moment, Margaret's days changed. She stopped going to church because walking in alone felt uncomfortable. She stopped cooking real meals because cooking for one felt pointless. Some weeks, the only voice she heard in her home came from the television. Here's the part that matters. Margaret would tell you she's fine. She's not crying every day. She's not asking for help. If her doctor asked how she was doing, she'd smile and say she can't complain. And that is exactly why this health risk is so dangerous. It hides in plain sight, behind politeness, behind pride, and behind the quiet belief that this is simply what growing older looks like. But it isn't, and the research on this is remarkably clear. First, let's get our terms straight, because social isolation and loneliness are related, but they are not the same thing. Social isolation is objective. It means having few social contacts, few interactions, and limited connection to community. You can measure it by counting. How many people did you speak with this week? How many times did you leave the house? Loneliness, on the other hand, is subjective. It's the painful feeling that the connection you have doesn't match the connection you need. And here's something important. You can be isolated without feeling lonely. Some people genuinely thrive with a lot of solitude, and you can feel deeply lonely in a crowded room or even in a marriage. Both matter for your health, but they can call for different solutions, and we'll get to those. Now, why should we treat this as a genuine health issue and not just an emotional one? This is where the science becomes truly eye-opening. Over the past couple of decades, researchers studying large groups of older adults over many years have consistently found the same pattern. Older adults who are socially isolated or persistently lonely tend to have higher rates of heart disease, stroke, depression, anxiety, and earlier death compared with adults who stay socially connected. This connection has shown up again and again across different countries and different populations. In fact, the concern became so significant that in 2023, the United States Surgeon General issued a formal public advisory on loneliness and isolation, describing social connection as a genuine public health priority. That's not a headline from a magazine. That is one of the nation's top health officials saying that connection belongs in the same conversation as diet, exercise, and sleep. And for those of us focused on the aging brain, there's more. Multiple long-term studies have linked social isolation in older adults with a meaningfully higher risk of developing dementia. Now, I want to be careful and honest with you here, because you deserve accuracy, not fear. This research shows an association. It means isolated older adults develop dementia at higher rates. It does not prove that isolation, by itself, directly causes dementia in any one person, and it absolutely does not mean that living alone guarantees memory problems. So how could something as invisible as loneliness affect something as physical as your brain and your heart? Let's walk through what researchers believe is happening step by step in plain language. The first pathway is stress. For most of human history, being separated from the group was genuinely dangerous. Our ancestors survived by staying together, so the human body learned to treat prolonged isolation as a threat. When loneliness becomes chronic, the body can remain in a low-level state of alert, with stress hormones like cortisol staying elevated for longer than they should. Over months and years, that constant background stress is thought to contribute to higher blood pressure, increased inflammation throughout the body, and changes in immune function. Inflammation, in particular, has become a major focus of aging research because chronic low-grade inflammation is linked to heart disease and is being actively studied for its role in brain aging. Think of it like an engine idling too high, all day, every day. No single moment damages it. The wear comes from never getting to rest. The second pathway is stimulation. Your brain is a use it or lose it organ, and nothing exercises it quite like another human being. A real conversation is a workout. You're listening, interpreting tone, reading facial expressions, recalling shared memories, forming responses, and doing all of it in real time. Scientists sometimes describe this in terms of cognitive reserve, which simply means the brain's ability to stay resilient and find new pathways as it ages. Regular social engagement is one of the ways researchers believe we build and maintain that reserve. When the conversations stop, one of the brain's richest forms of daily exercise stops with them. Television cannot replace it, because television never asks you a question and never waits for your answer. The third pathway is behavior, and this one is subtle but powerful. Isolation quietly reshapes daily habits. Think back to Margaret. When she stopped cooking real meals, her nutrition slipped. When she stopped going to church and seeing friends, she moved her body less. People with fewer social contacts often sleep worse, skip medical appointments more easily, and have no one nearby to notice early warning signs. If Margaret's speech changed slightly, or she became unsteady on her feet, or she started repeating stories, who would catch it? A spouse notices these things in a day. A weekly phone call might miss them for months. Connection, it turns out, is also an early warning system. So those are the three pathways: stress that never shuts off, a brain deprived of its best exercise, and daily habits that quietly erode. No single one of them is dramatic. Together, over years, they add up. Now let's talk about recognition, because this risk hides so well. Here are the signs worth noticing, in yourself or in someone you love. Sign number 1. The shrinking calendar. Weeks pass without a single planned social activity. Not avoiding people from sadness necessarily, just a schedule that has slowly emptied out. Sign number 2. Conversations becoming rare enough to feel unusual. Some people notice their own voice sounds strange to them because they haven't spoken aloud in days. If that sentence hits home, please keep watching, because the second half of this video is for you. Sign number 3. dropping activities one by one, each with a reasonable excuse. Too far to drive, too cold outside, too awkward alone. Each excuse makes sense on its own. The pattern is what matters. Sign number 4. Everything narrowing to routines that require no other people. Shopping at odd hours to avoid crowds. Eating the same simple foods. Screens replacing faces. Sign number 5. And this one is for family members. A loved one who always says everything is fine, but can't name the last time they saw a friend, shared a meal with someone, or had a conversation that lasted more than a few minutes. Fine is often the word that hides loneliness best. If some of these sound familiar, please hear this clearly. There is nothing wrong with you. Loneliness is not a character flaw, and it is not a failure. It is a signal, just like hunger or thirst. Hunger tells you your body needs food. Loneliness tells you your mind needs connection. The feeling itself is healthy. It's ignoring it for years that carries the risk. And now, the good news, because there is genuinely good news. Unlike so many risk factors we discuss on this channel, this one can improve at any age. You cannot change your genetics. You cannot undo the past. But connection can be rebuilt at 65, at 75, at 90. Researchers who study aging have found that meaningful social ties can be formed late in life, and that the benefits appear to follow. So let's talk about how, with steps that are realistic for real people, not just advice that sounds nice on paper. Step 1. Start embarrassingly small. If you've been isolated for a while, do not begin by trying to rebuild an entire social life in a week. That's overwhelming, and overwhelming plans get abandoned. Instead, choose one tiny action. One phone call this week to an old friend or a family member. Not a text, a call, because hearing a voice engages your brain and your emotions in a way a text message simply cannot. If the thought makes you nervous, remember this: the other person is very likely to be glad you called. Most people are. Step 2. Build connection into errands you already run. Say a genuine sentence to the pharmacist, the cashier, the neighbor collecting the mail. Researchers who study social well-being have found that even these brief, friendly exchanges, sometimes called weak ties, can lift mood and build a sense of belonging. They also serve as gentle practice if deeper socializing feels rusty. Think of them as warm-up exercises for connection. Step 3. Use a schedule, not a mood. Here is something honest about human nature. If you wait until you feel like socializing, isolation usually wins, because isolation feeds on itself. The less we connect, the harder connection feels. So put connection on the calendar the way you'd schedule a medical appointment. Coffee with a neighbor every Tuesday. A standing Sunday phone call with your daughter. A weekly class at the library or senior center. When it's scheduled, you don't have to negotiate with your mood every single time. Step 4. Choose activities with built-in repetition. One-time events rarely create friendships. Friendship grows from seeing the same faces again and again. That's why a weekly group, a walking club, a choir, a card game, a Bible study, a volunteer shift, or a class at the local community center works so much better than occasional outings. You don't have to be outgoing. You just have to keep showing up. Familiarity does most of the work for you. Step 5. Consider giving help, not just seeking it. This one is special. Volunteering, even a couple of hours a week, offers purpose, structure, and contact with people all at once. Reading with school children, helping at a food pantry, making calls for a charity, mentoring someone younger in a skill you spent a lifetime mastering. Studies of older volunteers have associated volunteering with better mood and higher life satisfaction. And there's a deeper truth here. Being needed is a form of medicine that no pharmacy carries. Step 6. Use technology as a bridge, not a wall. Video calls with grandchildren, online groups built around your interests, virtual classes. These are real tools, and for people with limited mobility, they can be a lifeline. But be honest with yourself about the difference between connecting through a screen and merely watching one. An hour of video chatting with your sister is connection. 5 hours of scrolling or passive television is not. The screen should lead you toward people, not replace them. And step 7. Talk to your doctor about it. I mean this sincerely. Loneliness belongs in the exam room. Tell your doctor if you've become isolated, because it is genuinely relevant to your health, and because your doctor may know about local resources, senior programs, and support services you've never heard of. This matters even more if low mood, poor sleep, loss of appetite, or loss of interest in things you used to enjoy has crept in alongside the loneliness, because those can be signs of depression, which is common in older adults, treatable at every age, and never something you should simply endure. And if you've noticed changes in memory or thinking, in yourself or a loved one, bring that up too. Isolation can sometimes hide those changes, and it can sometimes imitate them. Only a proper evaluation can tell the difference, and earlier conversations lead to better options. Let's return to Margaret one last time. In our story, Margaret's daughter noticed the signs during a holiday visit: the empty refrigerator, the quiet house, the calendar on the kitchen wall with nothing written on it. She didn't lecture her mother, and she didn't panic. She helped her take one small step: a weekly senior exercise class at the community center every Thursday morning, with a ride arranged through a local senior transportation service. The first week, Margaret nearly canceled. By the second month, she knew 4 women by name. By spring, one of them had become the friend she now talks to almost every day. Margaret's blood pressure didn't change overnight, and her grief for Frank didn't disappear. But her days had people in them again. Her mind had conversations to rise to. Her week had a shape. That is what protection looks like. Not a pill, a pattern. So here is what I hope you carry away from today. Social connection is not a luxury, and it is not merely a pleasant part of retirement. The evidence tells us it is a genuine pillar of healthy aging, standing right alongside nutrition, movement, and sleep. Isolation and loneliness are common after 65. They are nothing to be ashamed of, and they are far more changeable than most of the risks we face as we age. If today's video described your life, let this be your signal, not your sentence. Make one phone call this week, just one, and if it describes someone you love, be the person who calls them. If this video was helpful, please share it with someone who lives alone, and consider subscribing to the channel, because every week we talk honestly about the health topics that matter most after 60. In the comments, I'd love to hear from you. What is one way you've stayed connected as you've gotten older? Your answer might be exactly the encouragement another viewer needs today. Thank you for spending this time with me, my friends. Take care of your body, take care of your mind, and please, take care of your connections. They are protecting you more than you know. Dr. James Carter is a fictional AI-created health educator, not a real doctor.